If you can get people to book you faster using that 3-step process, I honestly don't care what else you do in the CRM. That is going to get you paid, which is going to get you more clients, which is going to open doors for the other things. So if you can just do those 3 things, brainstorm what you want to do with each of your clients, write that first autoresponder email, and then pick a CRM and do the proposal quote system. And I mean, guys, it's not even going to take you, I'm not talking about hours. I mean, even with absolutely no skills in automations or CRMs or anything like that, you are going to be able to get a proposal quote system done in an hour, maybe 2.
Welcome to the Beginner Photography Podcast, where each week we interview the world's most interesting photographers to learn what it really takes to capture beautiful images and compelling stories so that you can start to do the same. Welcome back, photo friends. I am your host, Raymond Hatfield, and y'all better buckle up today because we are chatting with Collie James about creating simple systems in your growing photography business. Now, speaking of business, this summer our family went to Disneyland, actually. Now, when I was a kid, growing up in California, I had went. So as a dad now, I was excited to be able to take my kids. Now, I was expecting some rides and some characters and all of the, mouse-shaped treats that you could shake a stick at, and all of those were there. But what I wasn't expecting, actually, was just how clean the park was and how different parts of the park had different smells and sounds. That was cool. And how cohesive each section was, by creating an immersive experience. And as an adult, I think we understand that some magic gets lost, and I totally would have been okay if I saw Cinderella walking through Frontierland, to clock out at the end of her shift. I get it, or if all of the employees wore the exact same outfit, or if the same upbeat music was played all throughout the park. I would understand those things. But is that what happened? Not at all. You didn't see Cinderella leave her castle. You heard, drums and birds when walking through Adventureland, and all of the employees of Tomorrowland had uniforms that looked like they were from the future. And this led me to ask, why? Why does Disneyland do this? Why does Disneyland spend so much money on things that you could easily look past? And then it hit me. It's the experience. Disney knows that if you provide an elevated experience to your customers, they're going to be fans for life. And in photography, when you deliver images to your clients, the shoot is over. Yeah, you did what they paid you to do. You could send them a Dropbox link and wish them the best. Or you could deliver your images with an elevated experience when you use CloudSpot. Amazingly beautiful galleries. Easy to use downloads for all of your clients. And the best part, you can sign up for a free account when you head over to deliverphotos.com. That is deliverphotos.com to grab a free CloudSpot account. And who knows, maybe you will go on to start your own photography-themed amusement park. If you do, let me know. I'm going to buy the first ticket. So today, like I said earlier, we got Collie James on the podcast. Collie is a family documentary photographer who in recent years has become well known in the photography community for her use of effective systems. Now, you may be thinking, no, I don't have a photography business, or I don't plan on having one. Well, no worries. Systems can be used in so many more ways than just in business. Systems are simply just a way to help you streamline your process so that you can save time and, more importantly, I think, mental energy. And that mental energy you can use to be more creative when you are behind the camera. So in this interview, Collie shares why she tells her students not to shoot below 8,000 ISO. Yeah. The importance of learning to see light, learning just how far you can push your camera. But if you would like to make money with your camera, you are in for a treat as Collie shares the 3-step process for getting more bookings, the best time to set up a CRM, and the one question to ask all of your clients to ensure that you capture better, more meaningful photos for them. There's a lot to dive in here. So that's that. Let's just go ahead and dive on into today's podcast interview with Collie James. Collie, my first question for you is, when did you know that photography was going to play an important role in your life?
Oh, wow. So, I've been in business since 2012. And I was always that kid that walked around with a camera. I mean, in high school, people used to yell at me because I had like the really cheap 110 disposable cameras with me at all times. I had absolutely no boundaries.
Uh-oh.
And, like most family photographers, when I had my daughter, I got even more obsessed with photography. The year before I had my daughter, well, I actually bought my first DSLR. So, I mean, I was 30 years old before I had like an actual good, decent camera. Took it to Hawaii for a vacation with my husband and shot the entire time in auto. So clearly not skilled,
Sure.
just obsessed.
Yeah.
And then after I had my daughter, I was extremely burnt out from teaching because I was a professor before I was a photographer. And I just told my husband, I'm not going back. I'm not going back to the classroom. And he was like, okay, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. I'll figure it out. So for a few years, I nannied just so that my daughter could have a playmate. And then when she was going to preschool, I was like, okay, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And so, I had been taking photos, and I will admit, like owning my own business, regardless of what it was, had started being really interesting to me. Like I had thought about opening a daycare. I had thought about going into real estate. All of these things where I could be my own boss and not have someone ever tell me what to do again. And then I was like, you know what? I like taking photos. Let's see how this goes. And that was how I started my business.
Wow. Okay, so let's back up to those high school days, right? When you had that
Okay.
110 and you're taking photos. At this point, you said it's just point and shoot photos, right? That's all
Hmm.
it was. So and then you progress into the DSLR. You decide to purchase that. All those photos were shot in auto. Today, we live in a world where it's plenty of people just take photos with their iPhones and they're totally
Yes.
happy with that, right? Just point and shoot photos. That's what you did in Hawaii. What was it about photography that made you think, you know what, I actually want to dive deeper into learning how to use my camera? Was it strictly the business, or was there something creatively within
No,
photography?
yeah, it was definitely creativity. When my daughter was born, I mean, we all experience this. We don't shoot as professionals. We don't shoot in auto for a reason
Mm,
because usually the shutter speed is not adequate or your f-stop is, off. So what I started noticing was she was moving too fast.
mm,
Like I was beginning to see motion blur and I was like, okay, so how do I eliminate that? So then I went into oh, let's buy, all of these photography books so that I can actually learn about the exposure triangle. And that was when I discovered, I think I was first in aperture mode. And then eventually that was like, okay, that's still not enough control.
sure.
What else can I do? But actually, now that I'm remembering it, oddly enough, I didn't transition out of aperture mode until I got really into video.
Mm,
Because at that point, I had a Sony A55, which is a SLT. It's what they had before mirrorless was actual mirrorless. It was a fixed mirror instead of it being gone. But that one didn't have full control over video. And so I was taking videos and the exposure was way off. And I was like, okay, I need a new camera, but I also need to learn more about how to control all of the things for photos and video. And so that was when I was, I don't know. I think I was studying like I was back in college, like every single day, like 2 to 3 hours. I would read about things and then I would, test it out on my camera. And most of it was still crap because it took me a while. But I mean, that was how I really got into the creative side and really wanted to like master the technical aspects of my camera. Because I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm definitely an overachiever. So the fact that I was still taking photos and they didn't look exactly like I wanted them to look was a problem for me.
okay, so tell me more about that. What was it, now that you have the experience of
Mhm.
shooting for a long time? When you look back at those photos, you knew that you weren't happy with them. What were those elements that you weren't happy with? What
It
was
was
it that said
honestly not being
amateur
able to do it
photographer?
fast enough.
Oh,
So
really?
I understood the exposure triangle, but like my hands couldn't keep up with the scene that I was shooting. I
Hmm.
should also say, one step back, I only do in home family and films, photography and film. So I am not an outdoor shooter for the most part. I mean, I will take my clients outside, but like 90% of my sessions happen in home. And so in a house, every time we moved to a different room, the light was different,
Hmm.
the color was different, and I was just having trouble keeping up with the changes. And it wasn't until I really slowed down and I would be like, okay, no, I would shut the door so that Chloe could not run away. And then I would kind of master the things in that room, and then we would progress to another room versus me just running frantically around the house trying to keep up with her and change all the dials when we went from my room, which had a decent amount of light but turquoise walls,
Uh-huh.
into her room that didn't have enough light with hunter green walls. I mean, that was the townhouse that we brought her home in was the first house that we bought. So of course the first thing I did was paint every wall every non-neutral color that I could find, because for years we lived in apartments that were rented and all of the walls were either white or cream or some, very bland color. So the townhouse that we moved from last year had very, very colorful walls.
That is awesome. So you really had to learn. It was trial by fire, right? Like you put
Yes.
yourself in a really difficult situation. Not only, as you said, with the limited light coming in through windows, which obviously change direction depending on what room you're in, but then making it even more difficult with the color
With the
of the
colors.
walls. Oh my gosh! So at that point, I'm trying to think through this. Um, so for new photographers right now who may be in that same situation, what out of the exposure triangle, the ISO, the aperture, and the shutter speed, what for them would be most important to focus on?
So, oddly enough, coming from an in home session, I say this an awful lot, but mastering the ISO on your camera and learning exactly how far you can push it in terms of noise was like the best thing that I ever did for my business personally, because I photograph everybody in homes. So, I still get people that say, "Oh no, I don't use my camera above 1600."
Hmm.
And sometimes when people say that, I literally spit my coffee out. And I'm like, "What camera do you have?" And at one point someone told me, "Oh, I have a Mark III." And that was when Mark III was like the brand new camera.
Sure. Yeah.
And I was like, "You only shoot your Mark III at ISO 1600? Are you insane? I would shoot that thing at like 10,000 and not
Yeah.
look back." And they were like, 10,000. And that's when I always like, I used to have a folder of images on my computer that I would basically bring up and, put into the social media. This is ISO 8,000. This is 5,000. This is 10,000. And they're like, there's no way that those are ISO 10,000. I'm like, they are. You have to learn how to use the light and how far you can push your camera. But once you get that done, you feel so much more comfortable shooting families inside of their home, and you're not as worried about the quality of the images that you give them and how they will look printed. I tell people, like, I used to tell my students, don't go below 8,000
Mm.
in a house. Just set your ISO at 8,000 and do whatever you have to do in order to take the photos. And then I want you to print those photos,
Yeah.
because everybody just thinks that if you go above that magical number, whatever it is, 1600, 3200, that once you go above there, that your image is just full of noise. And they are always amazed when I tell them, I would say the biggest majority of images that I shoot in homes are at least ISO 5000, at least. Of course, now I have, Nikon mirrorless, they do shoot better indoors. But I mean, back when I was using a D750, which was a really popular camera, yeah, most of my images were between 3,200 and 5,000. And so people just still find that shocking that I was delivering those images to clients. And I'm like, yeah, they're printing them on their walls. They look great. I don't know what you guys are scared of.
I think we just go ahead and roll the credits right now. This episode's over. That was perfect. If there's one thing that listeners should take away, it is 100% that. Uh,
Do not be scared of your ISO.
right. Right. Okay.
And
So
the fact that people spend $3,000 on a camera
yeah.
and they're treating it like it's I don't know, like a $600 point and shoot. I'm
Mhm.
just like, no, guys, the camera costs $3,000 for a reason.
Push it to the
You can
limits.
push it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I love it. Okay. So um, I want to move on more to where you're at today, but I want to stay on this for just a second longer.
Okay.
Where do you think that disconnect is? Like, why do you think that beginners are so worried about going over a certain limit? Is it that they're zooming into their photos as much as possible? Is it that they're
Yeah,
not
that
printing their
could be it.
photos? What do you
So
think
I
it
think
is?
it's everything, Raymond.
Yeah.
Literally, it's everything. People are not printing their images. They are zooming in. And what I want you to understand is your client is not zooming into 100% like you are,
Never.
ever.
Never.
So if you haven't printed your images, and the same goes, I mean, there's a million reasons that you should print your images. You should print your images so that you make sure that you're confident in the color that you're delivering to your clients. But you should also print your images so that you realize noise is not the bad thing that it turns out to be. I mean, and I don't want to say a big part of my business, but several sessions a year, I do a full day in the lives. I sleep at a client's house. I wake up whenever their children wake up, and I immediately start documenting them. Guys, at 6 o'clock in the morning, there's no light.
Right.
I mean, there's no natural light. And I don't know how you guys feel about your houses, but my house is very dim at 6 o'clock in the morning, even if I turn on every single artificial light in my house. There is just no light. So, that early in the morning, I don't have a choice. But one of the reasons that I'm so confident is because, the first time that I did a day in the life, I think I printed almost every image. The second time that I did it, I printed every image and I looked and I'm like, well, no, these are great. And, my clients are not expecting like A plus, let's print it on a wall as a 24 by 36 at 6 o'clock in the morning when I jump in bed with them. I mean, they're doing that to get the memory, but the images that'll end up being printed on the wall will usually come from later in the day when there is more light in the house. And I'm shooting, not at 10,000 ISO, but maybe closer to that 5,000.
Oh my gosh, this is so perfect. This is again so much that beginners need to fully understand about ISO. It is billed as this this devil, I guess, for lack of a better term, in photography. And
When it could
I
just be
love
that
that.
they're looking at old stuff.
Yeah.
I will also say every time someone says, oh no, I would never push it above 1600. I'm like, where did you hear that?
Right.
Like,
Right.
who is still giving you this myth of not going over 1600? And a lot of the times people will be like, oh, but when I Googled, and I'm going to stop.
Yeah. So you haven't done it for yourself.
Stop.
Okay.
Stop Googling. Stop YouTubing.
Yeah.
I'm telling you that you can push it and it will be fine.
It could be that you're shooting it, so high because you're at f8 or something instead. Like let's learn
Yes.
settings before
Let's
we.
learn settings.
Yeah.
Let's come back to the
I
basics.
love that. Okay, so on your website, today I know that you said that you shoot, you photograph families, you do documentary style stuff, you do day in the lives. On your website, it says that 9 years in business, more than 250 families shot, 46 states visited, 3 cups of coffee daily. My obvious question for you is, what are those 4 states that you have not
Oh my
shot in yet?
gosh. And hey, if anybody listening, if you live in these states and you want me to come photograph you, please holler at
That's
me.
what I'm hoping
I
for.
have not been to Alaska.
Oh,
I have not been to Wisconsin. I have not been to the Dakotas.
oh
Those
my
are my
gosh.
4.
Okay.
And the funny thing is, I'm in Colorado. I literally just need to drive to Mount Rushmore. I mean, and it's been on like our list for several years because my husband's like, we should just go knock those out. And what we finally decided was once I get Wisconsin, we're just going to finally get me over the hump. So we're going to drive to the Dakotas, do both of those. And before the pandemic, my husband had promised me that for my 40th birthday, if it's what I wanted, we could do a cruise to Alaska. And, newsflash, I turned 40 during the pandemic, so that didn't happen.
But it's
But
coming up.
eventually I do hope to get to Alaska. Although
Wonderful.
I don't think we're ever going to get on a cruise ship ever again. But I do have faith that I'm going to hit those 4. And I've also been to almost all of the territories. There's still a few that I need to visit, mostly in the Caribbean, but I've been to Puerto Rico, I've been to Guam. They're actually my 2 favorite places to visit. So I do hope to knock them all out in the next 1 to 2 years.
Well, we have quite a few listeners in Wisconsin and the Dakotas, and a
Nice.
few in Alaska as well. So maybe you'll have an excuse to go up there. But all silliness aside, I mean, really, all those stats. It sounds like you are, you have quite a bit going on. You're pretty busy, which means that you have to have some sort of systems in place for you to run your business. So let me just start off with the basics. What are systems, and
Okay.
what processes are you putting into your business?
All right, guys. So I see systems as any structured list that you can make of what you want to do with every single one of your clients. And I will admit right now, I'm a Dubsado guru. I have a course. I help people run their businesses in Dubsado. But it amazes most people that my initial advice has nothing to do with the CRM. Before you should ever think about a piece of software, you need to literally sit down at a desk with a piece of paper and a pen and do some mind mapping. You need to write down all the things that you want to do with your client from the time that they inquire until you deliver. That is actually your first step before you even think about automating anything. That list of tasks is your system.
Hmm.
Now, automating that system is a different story. And I always say that the best thing that you can do for your business once you start to get clients and you're, deciding that this is actually a business for you and that you're going to continue, is you should automate as much of that as you can possibly handle. Because if a robot can do it, you do not need to be doing it. Every single email that my CRM, let's back up, CRMs,
Yes.
client relationship managers. It's basically a piece of software that can handle your client communication and your client onboarding and booking system. So I am a Dubsado user. I use that starting with a contact form on my website. When someone fills it out, it automatically brings them into Dubsado, my CRM. And then I send them a series of emails. I send them a scheduler to have a discovery call. I eventually send them a proposal so that they can book me if we're a good fit. And then I follow it up with, questionnaires and emails. Guys, these are all things that we're all doing. I am just a big advocate for doing it all in one piece of software to save you time and save you money.
Okay, so my first question is, I can see the biggest objection, which I've heard, directly from people in the Beginner Photography Podcast Facebook community, and that is photography is a pretty high touch thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we automate these emails when we're supposed to stand out and show them like a good experience? Does that question make sense?
Oh, 100%. And it's actually the most popular question that I get.
Oh, good.
And here's my answer. Have you met me? So all of my emails sound just like me.
Uh-huh.
Now, if you ever see me on Instagram, guys, I cuss a lot. I don't cuss at my clients in emails, but everything else that you hear me say on Instagram, I say to my clients in emails. I have gifs of myself waving and giving the thumbs up and blowing kisses and like banging my head on something, depending on what the mood is. I make gifs of myself. I use gifs from like pop culture. Schitt's Creek is my favorite set of gifs right now to use. But I include those in every email that doesn't have a call to action because I don't want to distract them from what I'm telling them to do. If I'm trying to get you to book, I'm not going to, distract you with a GIF. The button is going to be colored and it's going to say book your session. Mm-hmm. But any other emails, I just make sure that I talk like myself. I also make sure that I include GIFs because when I send automated emails, my clients still reply to them because they think that I sent it to them personally. Mm-hmm. That's how good I am at sending automated emails that don't lack personality. Because automation does not mean you have to sound like a robot. Plus, none of us should be more worried about sounding like a robot than we are taking care of our clients. Now, I don't know the age demographics of your podcast.
25 to 40.
Okay, so you guys are under me because I'm 42. But guys, I'm beginning to forget a lot of stuff. I mean, I don't know if it's because I have too much going on or because I'm just getting old. But there comes a point where you can't keep it all in your head, okay? And so the CRM helps me because if I'm ever confused, if a client got an email or if they filled out a form or if they did any of the things that are part of my client journey, I can just go look in my CRM and see if they did them. Mm-hmm. So I value that more than I would ever value sounding like a robot, because at the end of the day, I want to make sure that every single one of my leads and every single one of my clients gets a consistent client experience from me. And one of the only ways that I can do that is making sure that, I would say at this point, probably 60 to 70% of my stuff is automated or at least templated. Mm-hmm. So let's take one step back. Just because I'm telling people to automate doesn't mean it has to go automatically. Every single CRM has an approval button. So if you put a step in your workflow that it's an email and you're like, oh, but I want to add a personal note, 80% of the email will be a template. Yeah. But if you put that approval button, you can hop in there and just say, hey, it was Nicole's birthday last week. I hope she, had a great birthday and I can't wait to see you next week. I have automatically taken an email that's preparing them for their session and made it extremely customized by taking exactly 60 seconds to write 2 lines of text and then approve it. So that is also how I make sure that the experience that my clients are getting is a really good mix of things that send them automatically versus things that I just pop in there, take 60 seconds to customize it, and then I send it.
Hey, Raymond here, and we will get back to today's show in just a moment. When I first got started in photography, one of my first sessions, I charged a family $75 for 10 images. Now, I had shot close to 150 images though, so to let the client pick out the 10 that they wanted, I sent them all 150 with a Google Drive link. I mean, the photos were low res, of course, because, well, who would want to steal 150 low res photos? Well, just as you would expect, they screenshot more than 50 of their favorite images, unedited, of course, and then posted them to Facebook. While I was mortified and upset, this was 100% my fault. I should have used CloudSpot to send their photo gallery. CloudSpot will watermark my images, limit downloads, and even let me sell images to those clients who decided that 10 photos actually wasn't enough. And you can sign up today and get started for free by heading over to deliverphotos.com to learn more about CloudSpot and sign up. Don't lose out on another $1. Now, back to today's interview. That's a great differentiation. Is that a word? Differentiation.
It is differentiation.
Okay. Perfect. That's perfect because on top of sounding like a robot, I know that the biggest thing is when it comes to automation. One of the biggest things that's holding back new photographers is this idea of like, hold on, somebody sent me an email. How am I supposed to automate a response if I don't know what's necessarily in that email? And what you're saying is there's a series of information that every single client needs to know. Yes. And then outside of that, you can customize the email however you want and add in those personal touches, specifically answering their question or whatever before moving on in the system, right?
Yeah. So people often ask me, well, Coley, if I want to get started, what's the first thing that I should do? Well, besides sitting down and writing out the list of all the steps and all the emails and all the forms, the very first thing that you should write a template for is your auto response to an inquiry. Now, if you're using a CRM and you have a workflow question or you have a question inside of your lead capture that's like, what kind of service are you interested in? Most CRMs on the market will let you automatically start a workflow from their choice, and then you can send them a very customized, templated email for each of those. So in other words, when someone contacts me and they tell me they're having a baby, I send them an email that gives them a link to a maternity session, a newborn session, and tips for how to have a great newborn session. In that email, it also says, thank you for contacting me. I'm so excited to be discussing, photographing your growing family. And then at the end, I always say, and you will hear from me personally within the next 24 hours. Because guys, when someone inquires on your website and they get that email 5 seconds later, they know that you did not write it.
Sure, of course.
I mean, and I actually make a joke. This is an automated email from me. Don't worry, you'll hear from me soon. I mean, so that they know that, you will be hearing from me, because I put that line in there because, like you said, sometimes clients ask questions and I want to make sure that they know, hey, this is just my automated response. I want to keep you interested. I want to give you things to look at on my website before I can read what you actually sent me and answer any questions or give you specific answers to, whatever it is that your family needs for their photos.
Right. Okay. So before we move on to other types of systems that we can have in our business, I can hear people saying right now they're starting to tune out because they're just not busy enough for CRM. They don't need
that's a myth.
That, right? Oh, it's a myth. Oh, perfect. Okay.
It's totally a myth. Here's the thing, guys, and I hear that a lot. People are like, oh, but I'm not busy enough. I don't have clients. But what people don't sit down and think about is right now you actually have the time to think about all of those tasks. You have the time to write the email templates. And guys, nothing to say that after you have 10 clients, if you decide that this one email doesn't sound, it's not effective, that you can't go and edit it. You can totally do that. But right now, while you're not busy, while you're still trying to grow your business, if you put the systems in place, what will happen is you will spend less time booking clients and nurturing the ones that pay you money to give you more time to market to get new leads. Because what will happen is if you wait until you get the clients, you're never going to set these things up because you're too busy trying to service the clients that you have to set up the systems to help you run your business more efficiently. And you know what lacks then? You don't have time to go market to get more clients. So it's like this vicious cycle. The best time to set up a CRM is actually before you get busy. Now, not to say that once you have all those clients and you don't have time to set up the systems and you don't have time to market, that's when you get stuck hiring somebody like me to do it for you. So if you do it now, it will cost you less because you have time to invest versus later when you're drowning and you can't handle the people that are inquiring. You're not servicing the clients that you have already. And just remember, guys, clients rave about your services if the experience is good. I can't tell you how many of my own clients rave about the fact that it is so easy for me to book. Because once we have the conversation and I send you the proposal, I mean, you look at the offer, you sign the contract, you pay me the money, you get the booking confirmation email. I mean, it's all very streamlined. And my clients love that because there's no back and forth. I mean, I will say before I had a CRM, like back in 2014, 2015, I was doing everything manual like everybody else. I was sending them the offer. And then when they said yes, I was sending them a contract. And then when they signed it, I was sending them an invoice. I mean, if you can eliminate those things, you will book more of your leads
Hmm.
and then you will have more time to chase new clients, which of course is the goal. And, guys, I'm sure Raymond's had somebody on here about SEO, but, blog, get your SEO good because then the leads will just keep on coming in. And once you have your systems in place, that will just be streamlined. And there will come a point where leads are coming in automatically, clients are getting processed, semi automatically, and then you get to go to Disney like me. You get to do whatever you want to do with the extra time that you get from your business. But definitely the time to start is before you are busy.
Yeah. Wow. That was perfect. And I know that Kim in the Beginner Photography Podcast community is listening to you right now, and she's thinking, "Okay, I got to get to work. This is getting serious
Yes.
because everything is manual and needs to be changed." So um, I think we understand now that the inquiry phase definitely needs some sort of automation from the
Mm-hmm.
autoresponder, as you said, contracts, invoices, payment. What else can we possibly automate in a photography business? We can't automate the photography, so what else
Oh,
is this
well,
for?
hey guys, you can hire and you can outsource your edits.
Editing.
you
Okay,
can
perfect.
you can use something like PickTime or another online gallery in order to do your sales, which is totally what I do. I will say, if you guys follow me on Instagram, I talk a lot about Dubsado, and I feel bad because I feel like PickTime is like the evil stepchild, and they're really not. So there are two main pieces of software that run my business. Dubsado is what gets me paid.
Mhm.
Dubsado is what brings the clients in once they inquire, gets them all the way through their session. But then there's a whole second half of my business with PickTime. So after the images have been edited by my outsourced editor, I, go through them, I look at their film, and then I upload everything into PickTime because I use the simple sales process, which is you charge a session fee, and then after your clients look at a slideshow, then they buy one of three collections, and all of that is automated in PickTime using one of their magical apps. So I'm a big believer in automation all the way from inquiry to delivery using those two pieces of software. But if you are still running out of time and you don't want to be all inclusive and you want the opportunity to make more money, definitely look into something like simple sales or selling your collections after in your online gallery software and figure out how much of that can be automated. Because even in other systems, like, I mean, I would imagine Shootproof, you can sell them a certain number of digitals
Mhm.
and they can pay you through Shootproof. And you, again, don't have to invest time in going through to enable a download and do all of those kinds of things. So there is more automations and systems to be had other than your CRM.
Right. I love that. So on top of the CRM, on top of just sending out emails, are there other things maybe on the back end that help us as a photographer that we could automate in our business?
So, I mean, I already talked about like client questionnaire, and I am a big believer in the client questionnaire. I think it's a really big part of my client experience. I am really nosy. I ask my clients like 30 questions on their client questionnaire. I mean, I ask them about what music they like, how you met your spouse, what do you love about your home, all of these things, so that when I walk into their house, it's like we're already friends.
Hmm. Hmm.
We can really skip the get to know you, the really awkward, 15 to 20 minutes at the beginning of each session where no one knows each other, no one knows what to say. Yeah, I haven't had that awkwardness in quite some time. But after they fill out my questionnaire, I have that automatically sent in Dubsado. So 3 weeks before a family session or 6 weeks before a newborn due date, those questionnaires automatically go out. And I have honestly, guys, I'm gonna be honest, I have forgotten about some of my sessions sometimes. And like when I'll be at Disneyland on a ride, I'll get a notification that someone filled out their questionnaire. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm photographing them in 3 weeks. So,
And
I
now
mean,
you're prepared.
again, These things help me stay on top of my business without actually having to do every single task
Hmm.
myself.
Hmm. So the questionnaire is obviously it helps you to avoid that awkward phase. Does that help? Dictate what anything that you shoot, anything.
It does.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I'm in home and I'm documentary, I like to call myself an activity based photographer. So
Ah, I
I
like
want to
that.
get into how you like to spend your time with your children, what the most important activities are that you're currently doing as a family. It's very common for all of my families to want to make a meal. So, I mean, like breakfast in PJs, making pancakes. It's a really cute activity, guys, because the kids stir, they try to scoop and pour, pancake mix goes everywhere. It's great for photos. But every single time I need to know what your kids are doing new, what your favorite moment is. Because a lot of the times I'm going into someone's house and I'm basically trying to photograph the moments that they've tried to
Hmm.
do themselves. And they either couldn't do it well because, the kids were running, the iPhone couldn't keep up, or they just can't get in the photos because, you only want so many photos where someone's holding up their phone in a selfie angle,
Yeah.
right? So I'm basically asking them, like, what was your favorite thing that happened this month? And if they tell me, oh, so and so learned to ride a bike, okay, well, I know to be prepared to be outside to watch their child riding the bike because, there's a lot of opportunity. Mom or dad's going to help them get on their bike, going to hold the bike before they leave off. I mean, all of these are good moments to not only get the memory, but also make sure that the parents are part of it and inside the frame. So, yes, the questionnaire is good for me to get to know them, but it also helps me plan for their session. So after my clients fill out that questionnaire, they automatically get a confirmation saying, thanks for taking the time to do that. That is such an important step in our experience. I'm going to look over your answers in the next 24 to 48 hours. And then I'm either going to schedule a call or I'm going to send you a quick video with a plan for our session. And usually that's me telling them, okay, you said that you wanted to get the kids in the morning. Do you really want me to show up at 6:30 when they wake up? Or do you want to wait until 10 o'clock when there's more light outside? I
Hmm.
mean, I give my parents the option. I tell them what it will look like if I'm there at 6:30, which means all artificial light, nothing like that. Or I say, you can fake it and feed them snacks until 10 o'clock, and then we can make breakfast. So, it sparks an entire conversation, and then parents are even more excited about the session because they also feel really invested. They feel like they really got to give their input on what was most important to document for their family
Hmm.
versus, in a normal portrait session, the only thing that mom really gets to, like focus on is outfits, right?
Sure.
I mean, in a lot of cases, clients don't pick the outdoor location, the photographers do. So parents are not really giving a lot of input other than their clothing.
Hmm.
And I 100% tell my parents, I don't care what anybody's wearing. Please let the kids be comfortable. Please don't force them to wear something that they don't like because then they're going to cry the whole time.
Yeah.
So,
Wow, that is a great tip, and I wonder. At least it makes me think. How can I involve my couples more in their photos? However, I guess with a wedding, a lot of it really is up to them because, well, it's they plan all that
well,
stuff.
like
But
for weddings, for example, I would be asking them about the relationships. Who is it
sure.
important, like in 20 years, and you're showing these photos to your children? Who do you want to point out to your
Ah.
children to tell them that they were there at your wedding? Like, what kind of stories do you want to be able to tell your children, when you're sharing the wedding album with them? And I just think that helps them really put the priority on, what's important to photograph and what's not. Because, they think they want photos of the flowers.
Right.
20 years from now, they're not going to be
They don't
pointing to
care.
flowers, being like, oh, mom and dad spent $5,000 on these photos.
Yeah.
Because your kids are going to look at you like you're crazy. So it also helps ground like any photography experience that is about moments and memories.
That I had to write that down because I'm definitely going to add that to my questionnaire. That's a fantastic question.
Another thing, even if they've never gotten married before, which I mean, most people getting married haven't gotten married before, ask them if they've ever seen their parents' wedding photos and what
Mm,
they loved about looking at their parents' wedding album if they had one,
yeah.
because it also helps shape what they liked about it and what they didn't like, even if, the whole wedding process is new to them.
Right, right. Yeah, that's a question that I ask usually during an engagement session, and the answer is
Mhm.
always like, "Oh, they look stuffy, and
Yeah, so
everything
then
is
they don't want those kind
superposed."
of photos.
Exactly, exactly.
Yes.
Listening to kind of the systems that you have in place with so much automation, and we're going to schedule calls, I'm going to send videos, we got gifts going on. That may be a bit overwhelming to a lot of new photographers who are maybe only shooting once a month, maybe if
Mhm.
that. So, can we boil this down to maybe its most like simple
Okay.
form? You said,
Three things.
okay, let's
Are
hear
you
it.
ready, Raven?
I'm ready for the three
Okay.
things.
The first thing that I want you to do is I want you to make that list. Even if you don't implement that entire list, you have to sit down with a piece of paper and you have to think about. And guys, I'm not telling you it has to have a timeline. I'm just saying someone inquires on your website, you send them an offer, you send them a questionnaire, you deliver the images. Each of those needs an email. Then you can go from there to say, okay, if I'm sending them a client questionnaire, I want to say thank you for filling it out. If they don't fill it out, I don't want to send them a reminder. That's what I mean by making a list, guys. It's nothing too, difficult. You just sit down and you brainstorm. The second thing that I want you to do is I want you to start with the autoresponder, because if you can't get a client to commit, if you can't turn a lead into a client, none of the rest of it matters.
Sure.
If you can't get them across the finish line, which brings me to my third thing. I know CRMs are overwhelming. I know systems are overwhelming. But guys, that three-step proposal or quote process, depending on which CRM you choose, is worth its weight in gold. If you can present the offer, have it automatically show an electronic contract for the client to sign, and then automatically show them an electronic invoice to get paid. If you can get people to book you faster using that three-step process, I honestly don't care what else you do in the CRM.
Mm.
That is going to get you paid, which is going to get you more clients, which is going to open doors for the other things. So if you can just do those three things, brainstorm what you want to do with each of your clients, write that first autoresponder email, and then pick a CRM and do the proposal quote system. And I mean, guys, it's not even going to take you, I'm not talking about hours. I mean, even with absolutely no skills in automations or CRMs or anything like that, you are going to be able to get a proposal quote system done in an hour,
Mm-hmm.
maybe two, especially if you already have your contract and you're just, copying and pasting in there and you already know what you're going to charge. Those things are not difficult. Almost every CRM has online help, like from the company itself for free.
Right.
So if you have questions, ask in their Facebook groups, schedule a call, because Dubsado will let you have 2 calls with someone from their company a month that
Wow.
you can schedule for free.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's just no excuse. Even if you only use it to book people faster,
Mm-hmm.
that is worth so much in terms of growing your business.
That was perfect. That's definitely going to be edited into its own little clip right there to be shared with people because, again, I mean, that's one of those things. So I know that, okay, one of the biggest hurdles is I don't think that I'm ready for it, which we talked
Yeah.
about. The other one is, okay, now I'm too busy and like I
Yes.
need to be able to set this up. So as we get to the end of our conversation here, for those who are in that situation, maybe they have too much on their plate and they need help setting this thing up, you got an answer, right?
I do. And guys, I'm going to be honest. I don't think everyone needs to hire me. So I'm going to tell you all of the CRMs have free options. If you would like to go that route, if you're unsure, join their Facebook groups. Schedule a call with one of their people so that you can talk to them. I am never above the free, okay? Especially when you're a beginning photographer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't object to that. I have 2 offers. I have a course for family photographers, and it's for other photographers, but you'd have to do a little bit more work. And then I also set up people's systems as a VIP day. I do both. The difference between getting the free help and getting the help from me is that I am giving you my system that is already tailored to 100% work for photographers so that I make sure that you are not missing any of the steps that have made my business successful. That's the difference. But I do not want the fact that you can't afford or it's not the right time for you to get into a course or hire someone for a VIP day to stop you from starting. The first step is picking a CRM. The second step is getting that proposal system set up, because I'm telling you, when you book your first client and it's practically it's like magic.
It's the best
I mean,
feeling.
hey, you could be on a ride at Disneyland
Yeah.
and you could get the little cha-ching, you have gotten paid. And it's like, woohoo! I mean, because I get those quite often. But And oh, you know what, Raymond? I also have a comparison chart for photographers. So I will give you a link to that. It compares the most popular CRMs for photographers so that you can see what the different features are so that you can pick
Perfect.
one that's right for you. I highly recommend Dubsado, guys, but I realize not everybody's like me and that's okay.
Hmm.
But, I just encourage you to pick one. I also want to say when you're a beginner, if you pick one and it's the wrong decision, it's not as bad as when you're really full in business and you pick one and you want to switch. Switching is not always easy, but at the beginning stages, I just want you to pick one
Right.
because you're still early enough in your career to where if you figure out that there's something better out there, you still have time to change.
Yeah, it's all about taking that first
That
step.
first step, guys.
That's all it
Coley will
is.
pat you on the back. And hey, if you take action and you jump into the worlds of CRM, I would love for you to contact me on Instagram and let me know. It's at Coley James, guys.
Perfect. I love it. Coley, let me ask one last thing here. Since you are the expert in CRMs and systems and putting these things together, is there anything maybe that I didn't ask you today that you want to make sure that beginner photographers understand about setting these up and getting it going?
Okay. So the one thing that we didn't talk about is I put so much emphasis on making sure that your onboarding and your booking process is automated. I maybe don't talk about the other ways that CRMs help you after a client has booked.
Ooh.
I briefly talked about the client questionnaire, but the other thing that I want to say is that you can prepare your clients for anything. So I call them nurturing emails. I have been guiding most of my students in my course, and I've been doing it for my VIP day clients. If you are someone who is offering the images in an online gallery system where you can sell products, guys, people don't just sell products because you put them in a store. People sell products because you make them want to buy them.
Yes.
I know you guys can't see if you're listening to
Lots
this,
of
but I have an
products.
entire wall of wall art behind me in my office. I have little video clips, GIFs. I have a video walkthrough of my favorite products that I send my clients after the session, but before they get their images. And that just makes them want to buy products more. So anything that you think your clients would be excited about, you should write an email. You should automatically send that email at some point after they book and before you deliver so that you can get them excited about whatever it is that you think is most important in your business. Now, I will say, one of the ones that I recommend to most people, because again, guys, I don't care, not even a little bit about styling. Like most of my kids in my sessions wear PJs or tutus. That's my favorite. But if you are someone who does like outdoor sessions and styling is a big part, guys, there are so many nurturing emails that you can write related to styling. You can offer them Pinterest boards. You can do all of those things, and you should go ahead and plan those emails. It does a couple things. Number one, it makes sure that if you are really invested in what your clients wear and you want them to be, that you're providing help. Your clients are going to think that it's such a high touch experience because, oh, you're helping them with this problem of they don't know what to wear and you're helping them solve that. So, any problem that you think that most of your clients have, write an email about it, put it into your workflow after they book, and send it automatically because they're not going to care that you're sending it automatically. If you write it in the right way,
Hmm.
they won't even know that it's an automated email.
Mm. That I think that just goes back to how much photography is a service more than just a
Yes.
product. And I mean, today, Coley, you have shared so many fantastic tips on how we can obviously get started with this, but also how we can go deeper. Like that last tip right there, send out those style emails. That is something that can be done so easy. We as photographers, I know,
You're sending them anyways.
right, and we
But you just
often
you are thinking about it every
yes,
single time you send it
right.
instead of like sitting down for an hour really thinking about what could go into that email, when the optimal time is to
Hmm.
send it. You put it in a workflow, you don't ever have to think about it again. So
Yes.
1 hour up front
Hmm.
versus like I don't know how long it takes you guys to write emails. It takes me forever if I'm writing them from
Forever.
scratch.
Yes.
So at least 30 minutes for every single client. Oh my gosh, you're going to save so much time.
It adds up. It adds up. And that's at the end of the day, I think as photographers, that's We like to spend our money on things like cameras and lenses, but once you get into the business side of it, you should really figure out how to spend your money on things
Systems.
that are going to, save time, systems.
Yes.
Exactly. That's so great. Coley, I want to say again, thank you so much for coming on, sharing everything that you did. You shared your Instagram there a moment ago, but aside from that, or heck, share it again. Can
Okay.
you let
So
others know where they can find you online?
I can. I'm on Instagram almost every day, guys. I make funny videos. It's not even mostly about photography, I'll admit. It's at Collie James. And then if you're interested in just seeing my photography work, that is colliejamesphotography.com. And if you're interested in learning more about systems or getting on my email list, that is colliejames.com. So I do have two separate websites now, one for photography and one for the systems side.
What did I tell you? So much to dive into this episode. Man, I think my biggest takeaway, I want to circle back to what Coley said about ISO. You know, ISO really is blamed for a lot of problems in photography. But, what it comes down to is shooting in poor qualities of light without properly knowing your camera settings. High ISO is not bad. It allows you to capture amazing things. And it just gets better all the time with continuing technological advancements. But at the core, I think what we're trying to say here is that it's the moment that matters most, not your technical settings. Would you rather have a grainy photo of your child smiling because they just, landed their first flip on the balance beam? Or would you rather have a blurry photo where you can't really tell, whose child it is because you use so low of an ISO in the hopes that you would have a clean image? You'd rather have the grainy yet sharp image every single time. So remember, ISO is not the enemy here. I would love to hear your biggest takeaway, or if you have experienced a time in which you've captured a maybe technically not perfect image, but the moment mattered most in the Beginner Photography Podcast Facebook community. To join the safest place on the internet for new photographers so that you can share your photos and ask questions, just search Facebook for Beginner Photography Podcast or head over to beginnerphotographypodcast.com and click the link on the homepage. Guys, that is it for this week. Remember, the more that you shoot today, the better of a photographer you will be tomorrow. Talk soon.
Thank you for listening to the Beginner Photography Podcast. If you enjoy the show, consider leaving a review in iTunes. Keep shooting, and we'll see you next week.